Welcome to Kind of Wargaming. I'm Jay, and today we're going to be looking at Codex Angels of Death. Alright, the much anticipated Angels of Death. So this beautiful book right here was actually a codex for both the Blood Angels and the Dark Angels, which I find really interesting because the Space Wolves got their own book, the Ultramarines got their own book. Why did they put these two together? I'm not really sure, but it's wicked cool nonetheless, and much like the Chaos one, it's just massively thick. I guess it would have to be if you're covering two armies in one. I guess because, you know, they share a lot of the same units. Space Marines is Space Marines is Space Marines, right? But I guess the Blood Angels and Dark Angels are somewhat similar, at least in their creation, I guess. So they decided to release them at the same time. In many other editions, actually, like for example in 4.5, 4.5/5th, they released a Dark Angel book right before 5th dropped, and then they released a Blood Angel thing in a White Dwarf in the same month accompanying it. So they're just kind of like sort of sticking to that in a way. I guess in other editions they haven't. They've released them separately, and in fact the Blood Angels have kind of got the shit end of the stick a lot of the time because they usually just get like a White Dwarf article codex rather than a full-out codex. But the last couple editions, luckily they've given the Blood Angels proper codices. Same with the Dark Angels, and they've been in their own books, so that's great. But this is where it all comes from. This is kind of, I guess, the first time we really see faction-specific rules for both the Blood Angels and or the Dark Angels. So, you know, it's something worth noting that this is kind of where it all comes from. So without further ado, let's just get into this book, because it's a stupid long book, and I want to get through it in a timely manner so that you guys aren't watching me for the next 2 hours. So, first of all, we've got this awesome diorama with Azrael there. That is super cool. And you can see the sort of aesthetic, again, like looking through all of the books we have so far from this edition. There's that kind of like, you know, very clean, very bright colored aesthetic. In fact, this one is less bright colored, but I think it's wicked cool that they've got like a map of this like a solar system up here on the ceiling, which is wicked cool. The stained glass is always a good effect, of course. This is just a super neat little detail. It's just a bunch of bolters around in a circle. I mean, that would be stupid easy to do. And the rest looks like it's just foam core and cardboard, so that's wicked awesome. Maybe some dowels as pillars. Cool. Super cool, right? So, most important page we're going to look at is, of course, the publishing information. So this was 1996. We're keeping on par with the other books we've been doing. I believe the Chaos one was 96. The Battles book I showed you, I think, was 95 or 96. So we're kind of going along the right lines here. And I'm glad to see again we've got Rick Priestley's name pop up and Jervis Johnson. Now, Jervis Johnson is sort of considered the father of the Dark Angels chapter. He basically created the chapter, as far as my knowledge, based on a poem called The Dark Angel by Lionel Johnson, hence the Primarch Lion L. Johnson. Anyway, so I'm glad to see Rick Priestley back in things. That's wicked cool. I guess he's chiefly responsible for the Blood Angels. I mean, the man's responsible for inventing Warhammer, so we can kind of blame everything on him. I shouldn't say blame, we can thank him for everything. So here's the table of contents. Obviously going through the usuals, explaining to you Space Marines and their power armor and all that stuff, how it works. Of course, we're going through the Dark Angels, their history, the Blood Angels as well, for their history, and then the sort of Space Marine individual units. We've got some extra ones in here that weren't obviously in the Space Marine book, such as Death Company, Ravenwing, Deathwing, that kind of thing, right? All the other ones, you know, Tech Marines, Chaplains, you know, all that stuff. We've got Dark Angel Interrogator Chaplains, so we're going to take a look to see if that is actually different from normal chaplains or not. And then, of course, we've got the Dark Angels and Blood Angels army lists. So it's funny here how they sort of go over the generic stuff that applies to both, and then they've got individual army lists for each. Very similar to the other codices we've looked at. We've got your characters, your squads, your support, and your special characters. Boom. Nothing major. Moving on. Got some sweet John Blanche artwork. Loving it, as always. That is so cool. That is so super cool. And this crazy Dark Angel veteran here, loving it. I just love John Blanche's style. I would get him to paint a mural on every wall in my house if I could possibly. Cool, so we're going into the Space Marine chapters. Standard fluff, the Horus Heresy, the Codex Astartes. We've got a list of some successor chapters here, probably the same list they gave us in the Ultramarine book. An explanation of Space Marine power armor and how it works. Cool. Now we've got faction-specific fluff for the Dark Angels. We've got the Primarchs explaining their home world, their Primarch, of course, the Young Lion. The Inner Order, there you go, the Orders of the Dark Angels. The Emperor finding the Primarch, the fall of Caliban. Of course, if you guys don't know, Caliban was completely destroyed during the Heresy, and all that exists is one sort of asteroid with a giant fortress on it, which they literally call the Rock, because that's what it is. It's a rock with a fortress on it. The chapter today, and the Fallen Angels. Cool. Again, like I've said in the other videos, guys, I'm not going into detail about this fluff. If you want me to do fluff videos, please comment below, and I will start doing fluff videos. But these videos are just to show you guys these wicked cool old books, and how awesome they were. Taking a little trip down memory lane, you know what I mean? So we've got the Blood Angels fluff now. We've got Baal, their home world. It is pronounced Baal, by the way. 2 A's is pronounced like a O in English. Some people say Baal, which makes no sense because it's Baal, like the Babylonian god, Baal, the god of blood. Hence, Blood Angels, Baal. We're seeing a link here. Coming of Sanguinius, there you go. So again, going through the Primarch and how he influenced their homeworld, the genetic flaws that are inherent in the Blood Angels, like the Red Thirst and the Black Rage and stuff like that. The Death Company, there you go, we got the Red Thirst. So the Black Rage makes you a Death Company. Red Thirst pretty much affects them all and makes them want to drink blood, which is just gross, but whatever. They're basically superhuman vampires, which is wicked awesome. And now we're getting into these sort of bestiary sections, so much like the Ultramarine book. They've given you here, you know, your stat line, champion, hero, mighty hero. Same as every other race in the game. You start with your basic stat line, work your way up. Of course, these are all in line with the other Space Marine books we've seen so far, that being the Ultramarines and the Space Wolves. Standard units, Tech Marines, Servitors, Librarians, Chaplains. Now, Interrogator Chaplains. Let's see what makes them different from other Chaplains. Looks to me, compared to a normal Space Marine Chaplain, Interrogator Chaplains don't have a lesser character stat. They're either a hero or a mighty hero, which is interesting. So they're called Interrogator Chaplains or Master Interrogator Chaplains. And it looks to me like the only thing that really differentiates them, because they've got the same leadership rule as normal chaplains, except that they are themselves immune to psychology. Faced with horrors that would drive a normal man insane is legendary, therefore they cannot be affected by fear, terror, and are immune to all psychological effects. That is super handy to have. Apothecaries and Scouts are your sort of normal thing, as in other Space Marine chapters. Space Marine Terminators, that's interesting. They list them here, because Deathwing, I was under the impression were slightly different, but I guess they're not. Or maybe they will be, we'll find out, because we've got the Death Company here, so that's your Blood Angels, crazy Black Rage dudes. So they've got an extra wound, it's interesting, 1+1. Yeah, extra wound, so they're 2 wound Space Marines, that's dirty. That's super dirty, especially in this edition. Aside from Frenzy, the Death Company are not affected by psychology. That's pretty cool. So they're fearless, which makes total sense because they're just nuts. Ooh, they can only fight as long as there's a chaplain nearby. May fight in dispersed formation, individual models 4 inches apart. If the unit is not led by a chaplain, then it dissolves into a mass of rampaging individuals. The squad coherency rules cease to apply and the models fight on their own. That's kind of weird. Individual models will charge the nearest enemy in range with accordance to the Frenzy rule. No enemy in charge range. Each model loses maximum movement distance in a random direction. Uses scatter dice. Well, that's not good at all. This random compulsory movement is worked out as soon as charges have been declared, but before the charges are moved, unusual for compulsory movement. Okay. So having a chaplain just basically means that you are able to control them. If you don't have a Blood Angels chaplain nearby, then I guess they get to just run around like crazy madmen doing whatever they want without you having any real control over them. So that's something crazy to note. Alright, now we've got the Raven Wing. Excellent. Rapid fire rolls apply. Sleep, eat, saddle. Because of any member of the Raven Wing may re-roll the dice, fail a bike skid test. Excuse me. Cool, and in fact they have the Jink rule. So this makes them a little different than normal bikes. Obviously they're expert riders. So apparently, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a bike skid test, but apparently there is, and they get to re-roll the result if they really want to. That's pretty cool. Plus they have Jink, which is insane, because you didn't see that until, what, 5th edition? Maybe 6th edition? So this is interesting. Let's read how Jink used to work in 2nd edition. Jink the vehicles they are riding, side to side as they move. Makes them very difficult targets, members of the Raven Wing when fired upon by enemy models. The hit, -1 to hit, -2 if they've moved 10 to 20 inches, and -3 if they've moved over 20 inches. Wow. Yep, so here we go. So we got the Death Wing as a separate sort of entry as compared to Terminators. So they are Terminators, but they're immune to psychology. That's crazy good. Note that all Dark Angels Masters, including Masters of the Death Wing and Masters of the Raven Wing, and any Dark Angel Librarians, Interrogator, or Master Chaplains are members of the Death Wing and therefore are immune to psychology as described above. Cool. Wow, that's really cool. Okay. So it doesn't just apply to Terminators, it applies to everyone who's in sort of that inner circle, as they called it in later editions. Dreadnoughts, standard like 2 pages of rules for Dreadnoughts. Oh, no, it's just 1 full page. Interesting. Cool, that is what it is. I believe we've seen the same thing in the other books. And of course, Whirlwinds, which I believe we only saw in the Space Marine book. I don't think it was in the Space Wolf book, but you guys can tell me if it was or wasn't. I don't really remember. But you can go back and check out that video. I'll throw it right there for you. Well, I throw up the other one too. And yeah, so that's that. Now we're getting into the sweet color pages. So let's take a look at some of the awesome paint jobs. So they've given you some Dark Angel successor chapters here. That's wicked cool. So these guys are basically like the Deathwing color. It's interesting. Whereas these guys are black, like the pre-heresy sort of Dark Angels. Neat. Cool. And then we've got Blood Angel successor chapters. The ones we're used to seeing. The Blood Drinkers, the Flesh Terrors, Angels in Carmine, Angels Sanguine, and the Angels Vermilion. That is a wicked cool picture of an Interrogator Chaplain. I still to this day love that piece of art. I've seen it in many places over the years and I absolutely love it. Just proves that he's down in like those catacombs under the rock. Very temple looking background. Just something basic but awesome about that kind of stuff. An aesthetic that we're sort of missing these days. Sort of that, the artwork you see nowadays is very serious, very complicated, very detailed, which is awesome, but sometimes the simpler the better, you know what I mean? Now we're getting into the Dark Angels chapter organization. As you can see, it's a little bit different than your standard Codex Astartes. Like we saw a page very similar to this in the Ultramarines book, in which it had, you know, 2nd to 5th were battle companies, and then 6th to 9th were of course reserve companies, 10th being the scout company, 1st being the veteran company. So it's very similar in this, except that their 2nd company is the Raven Wing, and the 1st company is the Death Wing. So still veterans, all veterans, but majority in Terminator armor. As you can see here, it's got 20 Terminator squads, Dreadnoughts, and Land Raiders. There's no dudes in just power armor, other than maybe the characters, because they can choose what kind of armor they wear. And the Raven Wing, of course, attack bikes, land speeders, and bikes. So an entire company of bikes. Nothing but bikes and speeders and so on. Then you've got your normal battle companies, the same way the other chapters do. Your normal reserve companies, same way the other chapters do. 2 tactical reserves, an assault, and a devastator reserve. And then of course the 10th is the Scouts. And here we go with Dark Angel's paint scheme. So strangely enough, the Dark Angel's paint scheme has not really changed much in the last 23 years. We have seen a bit of a change to the Space Wolves, we've seen a little bit of a change to the Ultramarines, but the Dark Angels is still the Dark Angels. Red weapons, green armor, just your standard green Marines. Sweet. The Deathwing, again, color scheme has not changed. Obviously, the Terminator models have improved drastically over the last 20-some-odd years. But, yeah, still basically sticking to the same aesthetic. And we've kind of got the same thing here. So we've got Azrael, who I believe is actually the same model nowadays. They've just given him a proper banner, like a... what am I looking for? A sculpted, molded banner, as opposed to this like sticker they used to make you use back in the day. So you would like photocopy this page and just cut that out, maybe paint on top of it or whatever you wanted to do. And same with Ezekiel and Asmodai. I actually have an Ezekiel where the backpack is that banner, like I say, as part of the mold rather than just like a sticker. But back in these days, paper was the way they did things. Everything was made out of cardboard and paper and etc., etc. Even the templates were cardboard. Nowadays they're plastic, so it shows you how things have evolved over time. So I just got some insignia to sort of show you how their company markings work. Some more examples of banners that you could, like I say, these are actually proper size to be able to fit on the model, so you could literally just photocopy this page, cut those out, and stick them onto your models. Like I say, if you wanted the resolution to be better, you might want to paint them or what have you. But a lot of the time, the box sets and the blisters, back in these days at least, came with those on like a sticky sheet. You could just peel it off and kind of fold it over your banner pole, and it looked just great, actually. And a lot of people would age them with washes and stuff like that, but it was actually super easy to just stick that stuff on. Cool. Librarians, Tech Marines, Servitors, there you go. And again, regardless of what chapter it is, Librarians are always blue, Tech Marines are always red, Chaplains are always black, Apothecaries are always white. It's at least the aesthetic they stuck to in this edition. Now people nowadays, they deviated off that a little bit. You know, let's just give their Apothecary a white helmet or, you know, white shoulder pads or whatever. Obviously it's up to you what color you paint your models, but back in these days at least they stuck to those rules for the most part. So there's one of those Las Razorbacks I was talking about in the last video, I believe, when we went through the Warhammer 40k Battles book. I would love to get my hands on a few of these turrets, just to even put on new Rhino bodies, because I just think they're so cool in comparison to like the automated ones that come on the Razorbacks now. Now we're getting into the Blood Angels. So we got the Blood Angels chapter organization here. Now you're seeing more like the Ultramarines. The first company is the Veteran Company. We've got 4 Battle Companies, 4 Reserve Companies, and a 10th Company. Colors respectively, making perfect sense. And then the Death Company is just kind of like this extra thing where they got the spillover of all the guys who have Black Rage. So there's no necessarily concrete size to the Death Company. It's just whoever has succumbed to the Black Rage. It could be bigger than a normal company, it could be smaller than a normal company. You never know. It really just depends on how many raged out Space Marines they have on hand at the time, I suppose. But other than that, it looks like they operate just like any other Space Marine chapter, which is great. Now, even here, you can really tell that the Blood Angels aesthetic has changed over time. Here they're showing their company markings on their helmets, which I believe people still do with their Blood Angels, but not entirely. And then we're seeing black trim on their shoulder pads. Most people just paint their Blood Angels these days just straight red, without a different colored trim. Then, of course, we've got the reverse on the Squad Leader and the Sergeant, where they've got the black shoulder pad with the red rim, or these guys have red shoulder pads with a black rim. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Just a aesthetic difference worth noting. And like I've said in all these videos, everyone's got the Goblin Green bases, which is just the way things used to be back then, because everybody had flat grass mat tables. Just flock tables. So there you go. Seeing, like I was saying before, Chaplains are always black, Apothecaries are always white. Just the way it is. Again, showing you the insignias of the different companies, squad roles, etc., etc., veteran markings, banners, blah blah blah. Tycho, believe he's again still the same model. It's kind of sad actually that all our Chaos characters and all our Space Marine characters for the most part haven't had many updates. Of course, Airman got updated recently, Carn of Betrayer got updated recently. I don't believe they've done any of the Loyal Marine ones though, because a lot of the chapters still have their old school characters. Maybe a couple of the Space Wolf ones got updated, because the Space Wolves have seen a lot of love in the last few editions. But for the most part, we're still using the old school sculpts from back when I was a kid. Which is kind of sad because of the scale creep that we've seen been going on in the last few editions. These old character models just look stupid small in comparison to new Space Marines. Especially when you compare them up to a new Primaris Marine, they look absolutely silly. It's like, this guy's the leader of all these big ass dudes, and he's just this little tiny guy in gold armor. What's that about? So, same thing, Librarians, Attack Marines, all kind of the same deal. We've got Mephiston, which in the Chaos book we saw a awesome conversion. Somebody made a Chaos Lord out of that model. I thought was absolutely spectacular. And then we've got Commander Dante, of course. Again, still the same model nowadays as he's always been, I believe. Which is kind of sad, like I say, but the way it is nonetheless. And now we've got the Land Speeder. Look at the old school Land Speeder. Now this is actually a purely pewter model. In Rogue Trader, they were very much like this, where the guys just kind of rode on it. In fact, it didn't have even this front plate. Then they came out with these for a short time, before in 3rd, I believe. They came out with a new plastic one, which was released in the 3rd edition starter set, I think. The current plastic design for the Land Speeder, which replaced this old school one. I like that Forge World has now done a Horus Heresy Land Speeder that looks very much like this old school thingamabob. So that's kind of cool, worth noting. Again, aesthetic difference, how things evolved over time. I really like this model. I think it's absolutely spectacular, and I would actually love to get my hands on a few of them, because I don't really like the sort of, for lack of a better word, sort of automobile, you know, kind of dune buggy look of the current Land Speeder, although it is wicked cool. Land Speeders are awesome nonetheless. But these ones just look so, I guess, like you'd expect a Land Speeder to look, like a flying attack bike, right? And of course the Crayon Launcher. I have, like I say, this turret on my Iron Warriors, one of my Iron Warriors tanks, and I use it as a Relic Scorpius, or I guess a Hellforged Scorpius in the case of Chaos. But for 30k it's just perfect. And of course, like I said, I wanted to do with the Razorbacks, I done on the newer Rhino body. The old paperweight Dreadnought, old World Trader Rhino that we're all used to. And now we're into War Gear cards. Let's take a little look here at these, because we may have gone over a bunch of these in the War Gear card video. I'll put the War Gear card video right there for you peeps. And you can tell me whether I went over them or not, but I believe I've seen, yep, the Shroud of Sanguinius, Death Mask of Sanguinius, sounds familiar. Inferno Pistols, yep, I covered them earlier. Mastercrafted Plasma Pistol is just something everybody has. And of course the special character specific stuff, which may not have been covered in the other videos, but I'm not really going to go into detail here. If you guys really want, you can pause this screen and read these cards if you really want to, but just so you can see the kind of thing it gave you in these 2nd edition books, much like it has in the others. You can actually see here that they've lined up the backs with the front, so you could literally just cut this out if you wanted to, which is what I did in my Orc book, as you saw in the earlier video, which I wish I had never done, because these obviously I've purchased in more recent history, and so they come in mint condition. But I wouldn't purchase it if it wasn't in mint condition, to be honest with you. So now we've got Ravenwing Land Speeder. I don't think there's a massive difference between a Ravenwing Land Speeder and a normal Land Speeder. I mean, I don't really know the rules off the top of my head for the other Land Speeders we've looked at, but I believe it's the same thing. It looks like it's the same thing. Front 10, side rear. Yeah, it looks like it's pretty much the same thing as the other Land Speeder datafaxes we've seen. And the Space Marine Whirlwind, just painted up in Blood Angels colors. I believe, once again, that we've gone over the Whirlwind in past videos, because I went over a whole bunch of the datafaxes and stuff with you guys. when I showed you guys all the templates and all that kind of stuff. So maybe even I'll throw that one up there again just in case you guys want to go back and check that out. I mean, you really should watch this playlist all the way through, right from the beginning.
Hey everybody, I'm Adam.
And I'm Jay.
We are Encounter Wargaming.
And we wanted to celebrate hitting our 1,500 subscribers with giving some stuff away. What are we giving away, Adam?
Fort Bane! Yeah. Alright, we're calling this the 2,500 subscriber Forge Bane giveaway because that's the target we need to hit to give this puppy away.
That's right. So the first thing you need to do is share this video, the video you are watching right now. And
then click subscribe on YouTube.
if you haven't already.
That's it for one entry.
And the more you share it, hopefully, the more people we can get to hit subscribe and hit that 2,500.
Woo!
But there are other ways to win as well.
Tell them about it.
Well, you can follow us on Twitch. That will also get you an entry. So you subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitch. On top of that,
support us on Patreon for 5 big buckaroo entries.
Crazy. So also all the people that already support us on Patreon, don't worry, you're also 5 entries. But also, you can hit subscribe on Twitch. Subscribing on Twitch will get you another 5 entries into the contest.
So good, and all of this to say thank you guys for all the support. We appreciate it very much. We've come a long way, and it's because of you.
It's true. It's been a wild ride, and thanks for all the support, all the help, and we want to give you some cool stuff as a thank you.
Awesome. So hey, remember to share this video, and guys, I think that's it. So we'll see you at our next.
We'll start off the army list. We've got your standard sort of, I want to say force organization, but of course there was no force org charts back here. We've just got, like I say, you have to have at least 25% of your army squads. You can have up to 50% support, which includes allies. You can have up to 50% of your army characters. And then limitations, special characters, blah 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 blah. Dividing squads before battle, so there's your combat squad sort of rule that they still even get to this day. I took that out for a while in 3rd and 4th and then brought it back with 5th. Anyway, nice piece of fluff there, talking about Lionel Johnson and Lehman Russ. Would be worth reading, but again, I'm not going into fluff today, guys. Our war gear list, looking just like the Space Marine war gear list for the most part. Yeah, I don't see anything unfamiliar, out of the ordinary, or even Legion specific, or chapter specific, I should say, in this case. Yeah, everything looks pretty standard with the other Space Marine codices, so we're still keeping on par with all that. And then we've got the Dark Angel army list. So again, same organization we've seen in all the other books. The only difference is now they've given you specific characters, so Master of the Deathwing would be like your company master, I suppose, of the Terminators, Master of the Ravenwing, company master of your bike unit. A Dark Angel's Master. Again, it's saying 0 to 1, so that makes sense for these, but this Dark Angel's Master, I don't know about that, because there should be a master for every company. I guess the chances of actually having more than one company master on the field at one time is next to none. Because they would call in the 3rd company, or they would call in the 5th company, right? They wouldn't just be like, we're calling in the entire chapter. Yeah, it doesn't work. Which, I will just get on a side note, kind of bothers me about some of the newer editions that they've taken away these 0-1 restrictions, because at least in 7th I played in a tournament where a guy had 3 chapter masters in a unit of 3 chapter masters on bikes in a unit of bikes with a chaplain with jump pack. Like, you will, first of all, there's only one master of the chapter. You will never see even one chapter master on the battlefield if he doesn't have to be there, much less 3. So anyway, ways people have exploited the rules in recent editions that don't make sense for the fluff, but I like that they put the 0-1s on these. They've had lots of 0-1s in 3rd, lots of 0 to 1 in 4th, and then just kind of done away with that stuff after that, which is kind of weird. So here we go. We've got levels of chaplains. We've got chaplain, interrogator chaplain, and master chaplain. Librarians, the same 4 levels we're used to. Apothecaries, tech marines, veteran sergeants are all pretty much the same as the other books as far as my understanding of it. Now we've got Deathwing squads, which are your Terminator squads, right? Assault squads, which are your standard assault squads with jump packs. Yep, Tactical Devastator and Scout Squads, same as everybody else. But now we've got Ravenwing Landspeeder Squadrons, Ravenwing Bike Squadrons, and Ravenwing Attack Bike Squadrons. And looking at it, I don't really see... Space Marine Forces section of the rules for details. Yeah, so I don't believe they have any different rules than any of the other equivalent units in other Space Marine chapters. I think it's just for aesthetic that they're sort of differentiating them by name. And yep, we've seen all these other ones in the other books too. The Laser Destroyers, the Tarantulas, Land Raiders, Predators, Rhinos, Razorbacks, Dreadnoughts, Whirlwinds, right? Standard stuff. Now we're getting into special characters. That is a wicked cool piece of art. Wow. That makes Azrael look so badass. So there's the rules for Azrael. Of course, he is the Deathwing. Yes, of course. His little helmet bearer guy there, the Watchers in the Dark, as they're called. It's got a badass combi weapon. You can take 3 War Gear cards. Has a strategy rating of 6. Wow. I may be wrong, but if I remember correctly, the normal Space Marines had a strategy rating of 3, I think. So having him on the field is a really good thing. Ezekiel, the Librarian Master. 4 Sword, Psychic Hood, Bionic Eye. The Book of Salvation, that's interesting. What does that one do? Ezekiel is slain. Do not remove his body. Simply place him on the side and leave him on the table. To the first Dark Angels to reach the body will retrieve the book instead of attacking that turn. Until the book's been picked up, all Dark Angels are immune to psychology and will never break. +1 to their weapon skill. However, if the Dark Angels have failed to retrieve the book by the end of the game, then they lose 10 victory points. Ooh, whew. That's an important book. Battle Standard Special Character. Interesting. It's definitely interesting. Grandmaster Chaplain, Finder of Secrets. He is, of course, Deathwing. Provides his leadership to other people. And we got Asmodai, the Interrogator Chaplain. So it's interesting that they've got the Grand Master of Chaplains here, because I don't remember ever seeing a model for a Saphon. But again, in this edition, they didn't necessarily have models for everything, and they didn't just make rules for things they had models for, like they do now. They actually expected you to convert things back here, and they gave you tips on how to convert things, and encouraged you to convert things, which is something that is awesome about this edition that I really wish Games Workshop would encourage that kind of stuff more. They just kind of go, well, if there's not a model for it, then we're not going to make rules for it. It's like, really, guys? Like, for a guy like me who just loves converting everything, give me something to play with, you know? I could probably still convert everything and view it as counts as, but people get a little upset at that sometimes. Anyway, back on to the Blood Angels army list now. So, Terminator Captain, Space Marine Captain, same things we're seeing in the Dark Angels and in the Ultramarines, just now instead of calling them Deathwing, just calling them a Terminator. Same difference. Chaplains, Librarians, same 3 stages, except that they don't have that immune to psychology rule that the Interrogator Chaplains get, which, like I say, makes Dark Angels stand out from the rest, at least as far as their chaplains are concerned. Apothecary, Tech Marine, Veteran Sergeants, standard. Now we get into Death Company. So Death Company, as you can see here, clearly makes a massive difference compared to normal Space Marines. Not only are they 2-wound Space Marines, which is just gross, but equipped with an animal, they'd be equipped with a bolt gun, they'd be equipped with frag grenades. Yeah, so they have, interestingly, you have to pay points per, as opposed to just being included in their points. That's really interesting. You have to pay extra for grenades, you have to pay extra for melted bombs, you have to pay extra for jump packs. Well, it makes sense to pay extra for jump packs, but weird. They don't just come with it like other Space Marines do. Huh. Terminator Squads, your standard Terminator Squad. Veteran Assault Squads. That's not something we've seen in the other army lists, so that's interesting to note. Assault Squads, yep. Devastator Squads. Interesting. what makes a veteran assault squad? Wow, weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 5, initiative 5. That is, wow, that is a big difference. Holy cow. Yep, scout squads, tactical squads, bike squads, your standards that we've seen in all the other lists, and the same thing with support. Yep, same allies as other Space Marines, Imperial Guard, Imperial Agents, Squats, and Eldar. And for our standard support, we're seeing the same things: Dreadnoughts, Tarantulas, Rapier Laser Destroyers, Whirlwinds, Predators, Land Raiders, Rhinos, Razorbacks, Land Speeders, and Attack Bikes. Same as everybody else. Commander Dante, there he is. That's kind of a neat piece right there. Again, John Blanche, awesome style. He's got an Infernal Pistol, Conversion Field, Death Mask of Sanguinius, badass. This is something I find really cool about going through the books from this edition, because we're discovering special characters that everyone forgot even existed, that don't have models, never did have models. Like, who's Veteran Sergeant Cluton? Guardian of the Shroud of Sanguinius. Crazy. What does the Shroud of Sanguinius do? Choose to activate or deactivate a stasis field at the start of every Blood Angel's turn. As long as the field is turned off, any Blood Angels within 12 inches of the Shroud become subject to Frenzy. When the stasis field is reactivated, the Blood Angels will return to normal. Bearer of the Shroud is not affected by Frenzy, and the field is deactivated. Huh. Neat. So it just makes everybody in your army frenzied. That's insane. Chief Librarian Mephiston, Lord of Death. That is a cool picture. That really makes him look like a vampire, eh? I've always loved Mephiston's armor, how it's like, it looks like muscular sinew. And they did that a bit in the current model range with the, I want to say they're like the equivalent of Vanguard veterans, the like Assault Squad veterans with the winged jump packs with the feathered wings. They have that like musculature on their armor, which I think is just wicked cool. I would love to build an entire Space Marine army with those upper torsos, because I think they would look absolutely badass, but it would just be way too expensive to do, even buying them as bits as opposed to kits. Apothecary Carbulo, still around to this day. Got the Red Grail, of course. Brother Captain Tycho, commander of the 3rd Company. Again, a familiar character to everyone here, at least I would hope. Familiar character. Wow, and that's it. Damn, that took us a lot less time than I thought it would. So, again, showing ads, all the codices, it's generally what they do. And this is always fun, looking at the catalog pages. Like I say, strangely enough, all of these characters are still the same models as they were back in the day. Obviously, they've updated Dante's jump pack, I think. Oh, maybe they haven't. Maybe it is still that one. That's what I mean. So you get Azrael, right? Even if you put him on a 32mm base, he looks so tiny in comparison to just a normal plastic Marine, much less in like Primaris Marines, which are like way taller than him, right? Just, yeah. Give us some new character models, G-Dub. For both Loyal and Chaos Space Marines. Give us all our characters. Redo them all. And the Eldar too while you're at it. We're using the same Phoenix Lords from back in this edition. Which again, still cool models, but they just don't look right next to all the current plastic kits and the spectacular plastic kits that Games Workshop produces. And strangely enough, they're showing you other Space Marine character models. For some reason, we've got Marnius Kelgar in here. Oh, interesting. This Dark Angel Standard was actually expected to be Brother Bethor. I was saying there's a special character standard model, which is strange. I thought this was just a Dark Angel Standard, and I guess in later editions they got rid of this special character and they just used it as a standard Dark Angel standard bearer. Standard. Yeah, anyway, so that's that. Why they put Marnius Kelgar in here, I don't know. I guess they're just trying to give you a whole bunch of Space Marine stuff. Again, probably encouraging you to convert stuff. So there's your standard Space Marine chaplains we're used to seeing. The standard librarians, again, that we've seen in all the other books. I guess it doesn't take anything to make an interrogator chaplain other than just using the rules for the same model, right? Standard Terminators. Now, these are actually your Deathwing Terminators. So, these are your normal Terminators here that we've seen in all the other books. But then we've got the Deathwing Terminators here, which subtle differences. We're seeing the knife on every one of them, because they each carry a ritual blade. As well, you'll notice on the heavy weapons and things like that, there are feathers hanging from them. Much like the Space Wolf Terminators were just slightly different, because they had wolf pelts, and obviously the more wolf skull on the crux, and things like that. Whereas these are your standard, sort of apply to all Space Marine chapter Terminator models. So, you know, they did do specific stuff, but these would still blend in with other Space Marine chapters. It's just, they've really just given you 3 unique models here to add on to the 4 other four generic models, I should say. Mix around how you please. Captains, same captains we've seen in the other books. And here is the Death Company. So what makes the Death Company special as compared to the other sort of just standard veteran models is, of course, you've got the blood drop stones. Like this guy's got one on his forehead, this guy's got one on his chest, right? Just makes them a little different. They've got laurels all over them pretty much, sort of signifying that they are like a veteran status. So again, they've just basically given you 3 new bodies that you just switch up the plastic pieces. These plastic arms here that you see here came with every set, and they just expect you to, you know, glue them up as is. Apothecaries, same old apothecaries. Veteran sergeants, same old veteran sergeants that we've seen in the other books. There's your normal Space Marine standard, different from the Dark Angel one, which was robed. Tech Marines are still the same Tech Marines. There's no Dark Angel specific Tech Marine, at least not in this edition. And yep, Devastator squads are your standard normal pewter body with plastic arms. Special weapon models, same old Space Marines, Space Marines, Space Marines. Assault squads is assault squads is assault squads. And then the armor variants, the old school badass armor variants, before they had plastics for all the different variants. This is pretty much all you had back then for different variants. Like and we've seen these in the other Space Marine books, but it's always worth going through the difference between Mark II, Mark III, Mark IV, and Mark V. In fact, most of the Mark III armor we see nowadays is very similar to the Mark II armor, as far as the helmets and stuff like that. This sort of flat mouth plate doesn't really exist in the plastics, at least not that I've seen. Cool, there's the metal land speeder I was commenting on earlier. And they're just showing you all of the pieces here. Back in the day when you could actually order bits from GW and a little, you know, assembly instructions in the actual codex. Since this would have come in a blister pack probably, and it wouldn't have included assembly instructions. So they, much like they have in the other books, with the dreadnoughts and stuff like that, they give you assembly instructions here. And there you go, the dreadnoughts. In fact, here it's showing variety of fronts for all the different chapters, which is interesting, because like I said to you, this is sort of your standard, right? Which would be this sarcophagus, and then of course all the other pieces stay the same, with the exception of the Space Wolf one did have a different claw, but it's basically just a different front plate. So you've got the Space Wolf specific one, Dark Angel specific one, and Blood Angel specific one. And really, they just changed the insignia on the sarcophagus. And of course, the Space Wolf one has like pelts and skulls and stuff hanging from it. The other ones don't have. But other than that, it looks like the only abrupt change is the insignia on the sarcophagus, and of course, the banner pole that you put on his back, which most people did not put on their back because it generally broke 1,000 times, but nonetheless. And the badass Razorback pewter turret. Again, if you guys out there want to hook me up and can direct me to where I can find some of these turrets for a really good price, I would be forever in your debt. And yep, the Crayon Launcher Whirlwind. Still love it to this day. The old Predator model. Now it's interesting noting that this is the Rogue Trader Predator model, right, with the rounded turret and the rounded sponsons. The current Forge World stuff for Horus Heresy is definitely going back to this aesthetic, which I think is wicked awesome, because instead of just coming up with something that looks old, they actually have gone back to their old aesthetic, because people started using Rogue Trader stuff as their Heresy era stuff. But this tank, like this original Rhino body is just stupid small in comparison to all the current Space Marine tanks, so it just looks weird. Even if you put these pieces on a current Rhino body, it still looks kind of strange. So it's just cool that they've, you know, sort of gone back to that aesthetic with the stuff. Just something worth noting. And there we go, final color page. We've got the Blood Angels versus the Gene Stealers. Well, I guess it's Tyranids in general, because we've got a whole wall of Gaunts out the front here. Yeah, and the little Gaunts around here. So there you go. And we got a Lictor right there attacking that land speeder. Super cool. Just a good look at that for a minute. Well, that's all she wrote for that, guys. That is Codex Angels of Death. Alright, well I hope you guys enjoyed that look at Codex Angels of Death. Next time we'll be taking a look at Codex Assassins. This one was quite a bit smaller, as you can see, but it was only really the rules for the 4 models, so it kind of makes sense, right? But we're going to take a look at that, because so far we've only seen the Assassins as like a generic Imperial Assassin, so now we get to see the 4 temples actually make their way into the rules for Warhammer 40,000. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I love making these videos because it gives me a chance to take a trip down memory lane and just look at all the cool old stuff. And I'm sure there are plenty of yous out there that have been with this hobby as long as I have and appreciate seeing this stuff. Thanks for all the comments and the encouragement that you guys have given me on this series. It's great seeing that stuff on Facebook, on YouTube. So thanks for that. If you haven't yet, please hit subscribe, hit that like button at the very, very least, so that you'll be able to see more videos like this. That little bell notification there, that little bell next to the subscribe, that will tell you when these videos come out. Also, we would love it if you guys would check out the description below and jump on our Patreon, because that's the only real way we can get any revenue off this, and we want to keep making awesome videos for you guys. So I hope you've enjoyed this series so far, and at the very, very least, hit that subscribe button and hit the like button, and we'll see you at our next encounter.
Like a monkey in a rocket on his way back home. Okay.